Another one I love, best situation for women is to be about an 8.5, and best situation for men is to make somewhere like mid to high six figures, but like not too beautiful or not too much money. Can you go into that?
Well, it's hard to talk about this because people roll their eyes at the problems of the very rich or the very beautiful, but they are real problems. They don't get a lot of sympathy because few people ever have to experience them. But in general, if you are in the mid to high six figures as a guy, or you are an 8.5 as a girl, you are definitely attractive enough to have plenty of optionality, but to kind of still fly under the radar with respect to a lot of the traps and ensnarements that are subject to capturing really rich or really beautiful women. And so I think that might be on some level, your best bet of having the happily ever after, if that's what you're looking for.
You can be so rich that you're a target, and the women who come after you, you can't tell the difference because there's so many of them. You can't tell the difference between the good one who wants to marry you and actually genuinely desires you and the one who's faking it. And you can be so attractive that a man keeps saying, oh, he's listening to your feelings and telling you you're right when you're not even right, because you're so attractive that you can't tell the difference. So I like this idea of like not being, so attractive that whole thing happens.
I think it's a big danger that we see. I don't know if you see this with your consultations, but something that we see a lot is that there's a lot of guys who didn't work on like, the riz, the confidence, the game. They never really had experience with women. So they sucked for a long time. Then they became really rich. And then they got this attention from women that they thought was attraction. But now they just became a bigger target than they were before.
I talk about that in the book, about the game of power, which influences all human relationships, is that if you believe that power is really based on being strong or being rich or being high status, then you are very confused. If the stronger, richest, more high status people were always the more powerful, how do politicians get thrown out of office? How do kings get toppled? How do celebrities get ruined? Like, they shouldn't be able to have their fall from grace.
Right.
If somebody was able to precipitate that fall, they were the more powerful party, and they clearly did that with less money, less physical strength, and less status. So those things I call power proxies. And you have to understand that power is the ability to get other people to act in the service of your goals. It's a form of, so power is psychological. I have to be willing to kind of reach inside of you and know what buttons to push to get you to forget your own goals and to move in tune with what I want. That is psychological, and it's emotional. And those who don't understand that, and who actually succeed in amassing a great deal of wealth or power or status, who don't understand that those things don't protect them from people who actually have real power, which is knowledge on basically how to manipulate other people, they're going to have these enormous targets on their backs because they feel like they're safe, because they have the money and the status and the strength. And they think, I'm a really powerful person. Not necessarily. Those things only work to the extent that they instigate certain emotional correlates in other people.
Right.
Like, physical strength is only powerful to the extent that it succeeds in intimidating me. If you don't intimidate me, if you can't sufficiently manipulate my fear, then your strength is worthless in the sense of a tactic of intimidation.
It's almost better to look strong than it is to be strong.
It can be. I think it's better to be strong for the individual in question. Like, no one ever wishes that they were weaker, right? I guess my point here is that it's not necessary to be big in order to intimidate. Sometimes you can intimidate way more intensely with your words or with what you don't say than with any kind of flexing you might do or anything that you've built up in your stature. So thinking that just being bigger necessarily means that you are powerful or can rely on intimidation. No, intimidation only succeeds as a strategy if it can evoke fear. And if I can control my own fear response, then that strategy is useless against me.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, status only works through the manipulation of awe, which is basically how prestige works. But if I'm not like awed or starstruck by your prestige, it's not prestigious for me, dude. It's not going to work. So that said, somebody who could headline at the local bar on a Tuesday night might be very prestigious for a woman who doesn't follow the NFL. You know what I'm saying? And that local musician might be more high status in her eyes. She might be more awestruck by him than
The alpha is contextual, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Somebody who is a multi-million-dollar Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Who I think would be objectively more prestigious.
Right. And also, like, when you think of like mutually assured destruction with like nuclear arsenals, as long as both sides are rational, then they're not going to attack each other. But if you had some irrational actor who was like, I'm not intimidated by the United States, I'm going to go ahead and act anyway, then it doesn't work.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. It's the actual force that would have to work at that place. Yeah.
Are you going through a breakup and you're looking to hit the field again? Click the link in the description and I'll send you an exclusive invite to my elite networking community where you can learn to date high quality women today.